Starting in 5 seconds. Yesterday, at the same venue, I addressed the big industrialist. Today, I am addressing a gathering of entrepreneurs engaged in small scale industries. The word small does not augur well with industrialist, but it aptly refers to industry. While addressing the big industrialist, I mentioned about the small scale industry. Whatever I said yesterday, I would like to quote: we intend to give vastly higher policy attention to the small scale industry and the Bhagidari sector, as these are important sources of self employment. I had dwelt at length on the problems of the small scale industries. I again quote: this sector makes highest contribution to the country's GDP. My government will welcome suggestions from the industry organizations as how to provide to this sector critical development inputs such as easy, adequate, and timely credit, marketing infrastructure, and appropriate technology. This lineates mainly issues you confront. I might have missed some points which I intend to put before you in brief. It need not be emphasized how significant small scale industries are in our national economy in the present context. It need not to be emphasized. However, small scale industries have been relegated during the last few years, even in the economic reforms process, which is often widely discussed, and we too support economic reforms in the country. The small scale sector has been lost sight of, and the main thrust of the reforms has been put on the corporate sector. No doubt, the corporate sector opportunities or export potential. We cannot ignore this sector, which occupies a key position. It is therefore essential that this sector has to play an important role in national development. The need of the hour is the nation's development and rapid development in the right direction. The complacency which we witness must be put aside, and we must march ahead for facing the challenges. That is what we need. The small scale sector is facing problems of credit availability. We will strengthen NABARD and SIDBI and make suitable arrangements to ensure adequate and easy flow of credit. You sell your products to large industries, which include public sector undertakings, but it takes quite a long time for realizing your dues. The government will lay down a time frame within which you must get your payment. How do you define small? How small may be treated as small sector industry? This has been debated for quite a long time. What should be the criteria for classifying an industry as a small one? Whether it should depend on the number of persons engaged in the industry or on the amounts of capital invested. We have a number of categories of industries, and all have the utility and importance in the economy as well. We have to take a comprehensive, not a fragmented view of the entire economy, but at the same time, it is also important for us to be aware of the problems of various segments of our economy. While seeking solutions to these problems, we must consider the picture in totality as well as the specific problems. We will be able to find solutions to these problems and succeed. Last time, when I addressed you, I had opposed the raising of limits from rupees 60 lakh to rupees 3 crore, considering it to be on the higher side. I had said that the idle limit for small scale sector should be rupees 1 crore. Today, I will not say that the limit should be so much as the situation has changed. I would declare that the ceiling on investment in the small scale industry will be rupees 1 crore. Reservation has also been an issue for discussion. Small industries require protection. We have to offer wide protection to our small scale industry in comparison to the protection offered to multinational companies. That is why the system of reservation was introduced so that certain areas of production may be earmarked for small scale industries. There are so many bigger and wider areas for large scale industries to operate in. They should not enter into the sector earmarked for small industry. But what had been the thinking of previous governments on this issue? The Abid Hussain Committee had recommended abolition of reservation. Fortunately, the government did not accept this recommendation, but they did certain things in the last phase of their tenure which they should not have done. There is no need to scrap the reservation policy. It must continue. The products of small industry must get protection. Big industry should stay away from them. There is a list. There may be the question of details which could be discussed with your organization, but the small industry must be protected from the prevalent cutthroat competition. It is important for small industry to use adequate technology. The products which these industries are turning out are of good quality. Such products have growing demand among the consumers now. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Sir, now take the case of oilseeds. We are importing 1 million tons of oilseeds at a cost of rupees 500 crores per year. What was PL 480? We were importing wheat more or less the same quantity. Why cannot we produce 1 million tons of oil seeds in India? Our masses are not getting pulses. Without pulses, what is the protein they get? Pulses are not sufficient. Our scientists have brought about a revolution, the Green Revolution. So far as wheat is concerned, our scientists have the greatest skill and they have bring about this revolution. So far as the oil seeds and protein are concerned, so that the common people are not deprived of them. Now, sir, the planning process should ensure that we produce mass consumption goods. What was the position last year? There was a shortage in production of about 25% in aluminium, in cement, and in steel. Why can't we ensure that there is no shortage in production? Was there any shortage in the production of air conditioners? No. Was there any shortage in the production of refrigerators? No. Was there any shortage in the production of cigarettes? No. In beer? No. In polyester? No. No shortfall in the production of the luxury goods which the affluent people could buy in spite of the problems in the power sector, in the coal sector, and in the elitist sector, and the elitist and the affluent industries could prosper in spite of all these things. There was a shortage in aluminium, steel, and cement. Why was there a shortage of about 15% in the production of nitrogenous fertilizers? Why was there a 50% shortage in the production of the petroleum products? All these have to be rectified. Plan is not or should not be a mere statement of intentions, and plan is not just that document saying that so such aluminium should be produced this year, so much of cement should be produced this year, and so on. There must be some machinery and some mechanism to see that these national objectives are fulfilled. Where are those detailed programs? Where are those connections between the planning commission and the different industries, different entrepreneurs, peasants, scientists, and others, so that these targets can actually be achieved and there is no shortfall in production as well? Now, so far as agricultural production is concerned, agricultural production cannot pick up without proper land reforms. Unfortunately, according to the economic survey of this year, land reforms have been neglected, but the economic survey of 1985-86 said that land reforms were very essential for rural reconstruction. I hope that the planning minister will pay adequate attention to the question of land reforms. So far as land reforms and agricultural production are concerned, in agricultural production, in spite of our difficulties, we are ahead of China. China's growth of farm output is not even 2.5%, perhaps it is a mere 2%, but our growth in farm output is about 3%. Therefore, we are ahead of China, but in other matters, China is ahead of us. But there is no reason why we should not excel them. Therefore, when we face these difficulties, we have to see how we can rectify them. Now, on the question of self reliance in recent times, due to the absence of the planning minister or due to some other distortions, there has been a backsliding, and it seems that we have lost faith in the Swadeshi spirit, in the spirit that we Indian people can stand on our own. Therefore, not much of foreign aid is there, and foreign aid has increased to rupees 800 crores or so, and aid from the International Monetary Fund is about rupees 540 crores. This type of reliance, too much reliance on foreign aid and assistance will not make our nation grow. Therefore, sir, I hope that the public sector in which we have invested about 15,000 crores of rupees should have the surplus. If we have to have a proper planning, we must have a proper approach towards the management as well as towards the workers. When we industrialize, when we nationalize an industry, when we socialize an industry, it is not an institutional change. There should not only be an institutional change, but there should also be a psychological change. You cannot have planning without the planning ethos, the planning psychology, the spirit of hard work, the spirit of discipline, the sense of dedication to the nation, and a sense of and passion for justice. Therefore, institutional change, attitude and change, and psychological change go along with the planning mechanism and the planning, and unless we can make everybody feel that when we nationalize an industry, it belongs to the nation and that it must produce surpluses and that it must not create losses, we cannot succeed because those surpluses will generate capital for further investment, for further production, and for further employment. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Mr. Deputy Chairman, Sir, I support the address made by the President before the members of both the houses. It consists of matters relating to all-round progress of India, maintaining unity and integrity of the country, honor of the women, providing a boost to agriculture, and removal of the shortage of pulses. First, I would like to speak on agriculture. After the nationalization of banks, farmers had set up tubewells and irrigated their land. With the availability of irrigation facilities, good seeds, and good quality fertilizers, the agricultural production has increased. Just now, it was stated in the House that when our population was 40 crores, we used to import food grains from abroad. But with the rise in population, our stock of food grains has also increased. For this, all the credit goes to our Prime Minister. During his regime, farmers were sanctioned loans and all facilities were made available to them. Farmers worked very hard and increased the production of food grains. At present, there is a little shortage of pulses. The President has said in his address that rupees 50 crores have been earmarked for increasing the production of pulses so that production of pulses may increase and their rates might be reduced and the consumers may be able to get them at lower prices. This will solve the problem of shortage of pulses with the hard work of farmers. I would also like to say that the farmers produce crops by working very hard, but there are certain things on which the government should pay its attention. The farmer works hard for the whole year, but when the crops are ready for harvesting, hailstorms damage his crops. Sometimes their granary catches fire. The government should pay attention towards this so that the morale of farmer gets a boost and he might be in a position to produce more and more. I would like to express my views about unemployment. The DRDA provided three-wheeler scooters which also helped in getting licenses to the unemployed educated youth of Delhi so that they could earn their livelihood. Bank loans were provided to petty shopkeepers, relevalas, and vendors on a very nominal interest. It is a fact that in the entire country, 20 lakh people were helped to bring themselves above the poverty line. The reason is that the government helps them so that they may become self reliant. Under the new economic program, the poor, the landless laborers, the Harijans were distributed 120 square yard of plot each in every village panchayat and provision of roads, electricity, water supply were made for them by DRDA. They were allotted plots free of cost. Everyone should have bread, clothes, and houses, and that is why our government is helping them in this regard. This is the aim of our party. It had been the policy of our leader to raise the poor above the poverty line so that they may become self reliant. Now, our new leader is also following the same policy. There are no two opinions that previously there was much poverty. The members of the opposition say that the poor have become poorer. This is not correct. The poor have made progress in comparison to the past. You can see the history of the past 20 years to know as to what transformation has taken place. The people of the opposition speak of 50 years, but I would like you to go through the development of only last 10 years. The water of the Ganga and the Yamuna rivers has been made available to each and every village so that the incidence of disease is checked and provision of electricity and roads has been made in the countryside. Of course, facility of road link from one village to another is lacking in some cases, but our government will definitely pay attention towards this problem so that roads are provided there for the facility of the people. The government have sufficient stock of food grains. Fair price shops have been opened at different places in every city and village. 10 years back, there used to be long queues at every such shop, but now people get all things of their necessity at reasonable rates. The government have taken responsibility to supply food grains directly to fair price shops so that the poor people may get food grains at cheaper rates. It has always been our endeavor to provide maximum benefit to the poor. There are a number of unauthorized colonies in Delhi which are facing great difficulty. Lakhs of people reside in these colonies. The government is going to make provision of water there. Tubewells are being installed at different places and electricity is being made available to them in an unauthorized colony of pre 1981 period. People belonging to middle class category like tailors, conductors from Haryana and Rajasthan are living there. Roads should be constructed in such colonies so that they can go anywhere without any difficulty. Buildings should be constructed for schools in the rural areas. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Mr. Vice Chairman, sir, so far as the rural banks are concerned, they will help the rural people, but so far as I know, the number of banks which are going to be started is very small according to the requirements of the rural people. If you want that they should really be helpful to the rural people, you must take into account the 60% population of the rural people who are almost poor peasants or agricultural laborers who require help, who are compelled to go to the moneylender for their existence in their difficult time for their needs. If the government is really going to help them, then it requires finance. Those families as a whole in India will number a minimum of 6 crores. If you are to help them by giving at least rupees 100 or rupees 200 as loan per year for productive purpose, it will come to rupees 600 or 1200 crores per year. Then the purpose of the government will be really helpful to the poor people. The question is, if you want to give loans to these persons and want to free them from the clutches of the money lender or the big traders, then you must create a condition so that these poor persons, maybe agricultural laborers, maybe poor peasants, will be able to utilize the money taken from the bank in a productive way, have some surplus, help his family and give back the loan taken from bank. In this way, the bank will be working properly, not getting liquidated. That condition must be created for the poor peasants and the agricultural laborers. This requires that these poor peasants must have sufficient land, proper irrigating facilities, seeds, and all that, so that by utilizing a small plot of land, he can produce sufficiently to maintain his family, to sell surplus, make a profit, and give back the loan taken from the bank. That condition must be created. That is the basic thing we must think of. How are you going to do that? Without having that in our mind, our efforts will go in a blind way and will not help these poor people. Next comes the agricultural labor. If you cannot give them land, maybe scheduled caste or scheduled tribes or anybody, you must guarantee the minimum wage to the agricultural laborer. The government guarantee work to the agricultural laborers throughout the year, or at least the rural industries should be developed so that they can get employment in the rural areas during off time when no harvesting or sowing is going on. You must arrange the labor power to be utilized in developing irrigation and other things or some rural industries so that they can employ labor. Then only the agricultural laborer taking loan from the bank can help his family, and the bank will be really helpful. Without this broad outlook in our country, the objective of the rural bank to help these poor people will not be fulfilled. I want that the minister should have some such outlook so that it can really help the rural people. For this, a radical land reform is required in the rural areas. The Agricultural Tax Inquiry Committee report or RAY Committee report has already mentioned that 10% of the families are controlling two-thirds of the rural produce. If that is the case, if you are going to help those 90% rural families who are only getting only one third of the rural produce, then that system must be changed, and for that, a radical reform is required. You have better seeds and fertilizers and irrigation. Scientists are developing various methods of having sufficient produce from a limited area of land. There is the rotation of crops, etc. You can fully utilize the scientific achievements for the poor people to develop new village industries, and then there are families who are holding and controlling vast amount of land without being able to utilize it, who become moneylenders at great profits. These must be removed from the village. Then only your rural banks will be helpful. Otherwise, these rural banks would be the dens of the moneylenders. If you do not proceed in that way, it will work as a shelter for the moneylenders. They will take money in the name of agricultural workers and poor peasants and utilize it themselves. If a government officer goes there, well, so many laborers are tilling the land, and they will make it appear before the officer that the agricultural laborer are utilizing it, but really speaking, they are nominal. The same things in cooperatives also. Cooperative loans are taken by rich farmers and they utilize it in the villages in the name of the poor people. So, if you really want to help the poor and free them from the clutches of the money lenders, the government should have a radical change in the system of village economy in India. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Sir, I rise to offer my reactions and make my observations in this debate on planning. I feel this debate is taking place at the most appropriate time because the guidelines and the objectives, though limited for the 7th 5-year plan, are being finalized and are being fixed. Sir, the objectives are there. The Planning Commission fixes the physical targets as against the volume of expenditure as fixed against the mobilized resources, but these physical targets according to me are offset according to me because of three reasons. Firstly, a large sector of our economy is not within the control of the Planning Commission. I would cite that the sectors of cement, energy, coal, and railways, these have become very sensitive, so much so a slightest change here and there will set off the targets which have been fixed by the Planning Commission. Then I come to the second point, which is a very important point. The Finance Commission, as per our Constitution, has been authorized to make every time certain recommendations. One of the recommendations is that whenever there are natural calamities like drought, like floods, like earthquakes, and so on, then the loans which are to be advanced to the states are to be advanced from the plans which are to be projected by the states concerned. We know in our country, more or less, every state suffers from these calamities within a short span of 5 years, and therefore the plans of the states also suffer. A remedy will have to be found for this purpose. Then, sir, the third reason is that although we fix the growth rate in journal and in the industrial sector in particular, we have no built-in mechanism to see that the benefits and the gains of the plans are justly and equitably distributed among all the people spread all over the country. Then, sir, I come to a very important point which has been a point of discussion and a point of controversy whenever any demands are made or any budget proposals are discussed in this house. This is about the development of the backward areas. This is particularly so because I came from an area where all the five districts are industrially backward as declared by the Planning Commission. Let me first point out that there is a misconception about the whole thing. We have been from the beginning identifying the states as backward states and advanced states in this country. This is the root cause why backward areas are existing in our country. This particular subject is mostly concerned with macro, semi macro, micro, and semi micro planning. I would suggest that there should be coordination at every level and an integration at all the levels. This is not happening as far as backward areas are concerned. In 1973, committee was appointed under Mr. Pandey to find our backward areas in this country. Then again in 1967, another committee was appointed under my honorable friend who tried to find our different industries and certain indices which would help in deciding upon the backward areas of the districts, and he came to the conclusion that in this country there were 250 districts which were considered to be backward. I do not agree with this concept because it is not only the industrial backwardness which is to be taken into account, but there are certain other factors also which have to be taken into account, and unless we go to the same micro level of the district to be counted as a unit for the purpose of planning, I do not think we will be able to eradicate or remove the underdeveloped character of the backward areas. The definition of backward areas has been confused with different terms, although they have got their own parameters, they have got their own counts, their own methods of being judged. The term backward area has been confused with the term of underdeveloping areas and with the term sick areas. Sick areas are those areas which have developed and where the micro units have gone sick. They require revitalization, they require consolidation. Here, I am concerned with the backward areas which are underdeveloped in their character. Now, what should be done for this? I have got a few suggestions to make about them. First of all, I feel that this concept that if some state is advanced and therefore the area that is covered by that state is also taken as advanced should not at all be there. On the other hand, we must take district as a unit, and according to the indices that are at our disposal, we should decide upon which districts in this country are backward from all points of view. A total picture should be taken into account, and not the picture about industry alone should be taken into account. It was because the picture about industry was taken into account, there were certain recommendations made that there should be concessions in taxes. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. I wish to thank my fellow countrymen for the confidence reposed in me and for affection and goodwill they have shown me not only as president but indeed all through my public life covering a span of over 50 years. As you are all aware, during my term as president, it fell to my lot to examine and decide constitutional issues, the like of which none of my predecessors had been called upon to face. Constitutional experts may have differences of opinion about the correctness of some of my decisions, but the people, by their verdict, approved of the way I had dealt with the situation, having regard to the background against which the general elections to the Lok Sabha in January 1999 were conducted. I felt a special responsibility in the matter and was anxious to ensure that elections should be free, fair, and peaceful. It gave me immense satisfaction that the governments at the center and in the states and administration at all levels, both in the center and in the states, ensured that the elections conducted were as free and fair as were earlier. While the lamp of democracy has been extinguished in some countries around us, we have reason to feel pleased but that we have adopted and have been following the democratic system of that they will not accept abrogation and abridgment in human rights and freedom, and have shown their clear preference for the democratic system. Democratic form of government is ruled by reason and by persuasion. We should always endeavor to arrive at as much of consent as possible. The voice of the minority and the voice of the opposition, which too represents a sizable section of the people, should be heard and given all possible considerations. The opposition, on its part, has to be reasonable and constructive in its approach. Whichever party may be in power, there must be an opposition that can expose the mistakes and misdeeds of the ruling party, so that the latter, at any moment of providing an alternative to the party in power, is the only safeguard against misrule. It is a matter of regret that over the years a united opposition which can provide an alternative to the party in power has not evolved. In the absence of a strong opposition, work of the government is not challenged. Democracy is not just a political system, a mere facade of elections, and an assembly of elected representatives is not the totality of its content. It is essentially civilized conduct of human relations and affairs. Restraint and moderation, understanding and accommodation, decency and uprightness are the basic. My friend talked of democracy and ballot. He said that the ballot was free. This was an election in which ballot was unfree, but pattern was free, blow was free, bayonet was free, bullet was free, but ballot was not free. This was an election in which the people would not vote, but if they did not want to vote, they were being forced to vote, and it was an election conducted entirely by the CRPF and BSF. I can say on authority that at various places the BSF Jawans were being given training to serve as polling personnel, and in a large number of cases the CRPF and BSF personnel acted as civilian personnel to discharge duties of polling officers. That was the kind of election which has been arranged in Assam. But then, when you say this election is a normal election, when you say the situation is an ordinary situation, I would only recall the kind of oppressive laws that were available and are still available in Assam. Who does not know about the Special Armed Forces Act? Who does not know about the Distributed Areas Act? Who does not know that the various provisions of the infamous Police Act of 1861 were also implemented in Assam? Who does not know that NSA and ESMA were also implemented? Who does not know that there was the executive magistrate's order by which anybody who was an executive magistrate would be discharging the duties of a judicial magistrate, would be discharging the duties of a judicial magistrate, so that the independence of the judiciary was given the go by, and does not know that any person could be given the responsibility of acting
as a police officer or police personnel, and if he or she says no, I won't do it, he or she would be fined or sentenced otherwise. And there was press censorship. On the one hand, you have all their oppressive laws, and on the other, you also promulgated Section 144 all over Assam, and no meeting can be held without the permission of the authorities, and the authorities would not permit it. This was the situation, and it is sad that there was a free election whenever an ordinance was issued, whether it was the ordinance relating to the position of the executive magistrates or an ordinance relating to police forces. The plea was that the situation was extraordinary in each Gazette notification. It was said that the situation was extraordinary, and that is why we are doing this. We are taking over these powers. Stop.